everyone. I hope you're doing well. I'm Carol Considine. I'm the Director of Applied Projects in the Institute for Coastal Adaptation and Resilience, and I'm really excited to be here today. Um, I'm sorry. This series is proudly sponsored by the Chesapeake Bay Foundation, the Coastal Virginia Adaptation and Resilience Consortium, and the Institute for Coastal Adaptation and Resilience, three organizations committed to advancing sustainability and community-driven solutions in the region. Please, if you haven't already done so, add your name and company to the chat because this will let everyone know who is in your community working in these areas and interested in these topics. Um, Please note that the webinar will be recorded and the recording posting will be sent to you in an email so that if someone registered and wasn't able to be here, they can easily access the recording. Um, and if you are a COVA A&R member, please vote for the 5 industry representatives to our steering committee. I'm really excited to be moving the steering committee to include industry members, and that voting period will end December 2nd, and we really need the member input to do that. I am especially interested in this series because I'm interested in learning from other communities, what they're doing in this area. And so I'm really excited to hear about what's happening in the EU related to sponge cities and maybe how that applies here. But I'm also really interested in this urban tree canopy and how does urban tree canopy contribute to the stormwater cycle and reduce the amount of stormwater that's entering our systems, and how are we accounting for it now? How should we be accounting for it? And is that an avenue to stress the importance of green infrastructure in our communities? So again, I'm just really happy to be here. I'm really excited to have our guest speakers here. And Christy, I am going to turn this over to you.
Thank you so much, Carol. I'm Christy Everett. I am with the Chesapeake Bay Foundation. I organized this series with Carol, so very much appreciate that partnership and support, and really appreciate you all joining. I know this is a day before weekend for many and getting on the holiday, but looks like we've got a great group here. So thank you all for taking the time to learn about this important issue. As Carol said, it's really important for our region and to share this information and be together with this community of knowledge and community of practice. We will have time for questions at the end, I believe, so put those in the Q&A section portion of the Zoom feature, not the chat, and we'll get to those. And with that, I won't delay because we've got some great speakers. Stefan is joining us from, I guess, from Zurich, Switzerland, and it's 6 p.m. there. You can see Stefan's wearing a big coat. I told him that was really cold here in the Hampton Roads area. For those of you in the Hampton Roads area, it's not really that cold. You know, it's a beautiful sunny day and we're close to the beach. So he's probably very jealous and angry, but appreciate him adjusting to the time difference and spending the time sharing what they're learning. Stefan Stevanovic works as a research associate with the Zurich University of Applied Sciences. In 2023, he was awarded the European Young Urban Forester of the Year for his research work. He has long been engaged in research on urban ecosystems and sustainable urban development, especially in the field of sponge cities, urban forestry, and urban trees. His research team is one of the leading institutions in Europe, specializing in engineered substrates and plant design for sponge city applications. They've implemented related projects in several Swiss cities, including Zurich, Lucerne, and Bern, and accumulated deep insights in tree species and substrate selections in urban contexts. So with that, I'll let Stefan begin and share some great information with the group.
Yes, thank you very much for this kind introduction, Christy. I will share in a minute my presentation. Welcome, everyone, from Switzerland, from Europe. Really cold. We have snow now. I'm in a jacket because, yeah, it's my office is not that well heated. But in any way, I will warm up and give you hopefully interesting input how we are dealing with rain, water, and urban trees, and help you hopefully with your challenges and your difficulties. So to start off, it doesn't look right now like that, unfortunately, but that's our campus of our school, Applied University in Switzerland, in Zurich. We have a wonderful view over the lake, and we have a little bit a view on the mountains when it's not cloudy and foggy and cold. So a really nice place where we can do all kind of experiments and projects. And I wanted to make you guys as well a little bit jealous since you have the better weather or warmer weather as I have it. Switzerland known usually for cheese and chocolate and maybe banks and money. But also hopefully at one point about sponge cities. Some people call it sponge cities, other countries call it water sensitive cities or sustainable rainwater management and so on. Sponge cities or sponge city comes from China. They were the first one who called it that way. It's a concept. They described it the first time as a city that acts like a sponge, and they noticed after a short period of time, you can't really say what is really acting like a sponge or not. So they had to define it a little bit closer and say it, okay, it doesn't mean just to act as a sponge or it acts as a sponge. If the water gets absorbed, stored, allowed to be to seep through it, to purify it, and in the last, as a last measurement, used into the canalization in the sewer system. 1 year later, Leo mentioned as well that it's not just to deal with the rainwater, but also to use it in an environmentally friendly way, so as close to nature as possible, which was like kind of the final sponge city definition. I mean, until today, there's not really a definition that sums it up, everything together. But that was kind of the idea. And it was also a starting point to not see any more rainwater or stormwater as a part of our sewer system, but more as a resource. We want to use it in our cities in some kind of way. For those reasons, they had to set some kind of goals to reach, where they said, okay, 20% of the urban area has to be under Sponge City standards. Now you're asking yourself, maybe what's the Sponge City standard? They said 70% of the precipitation has to be used somehow locally until 2020, and until 2030, 80% of the water or of the precipitation. I was last September in China, which was a really interesting experience, and they were capable to implement that pretty quickly since they don't have such a bureaucratic ways, not so many administrational challenges. And they didn't just said we have to use all the water locally. They also said each sponge city measurement has to have an infiltration, retention, storage, purification, evaporation, and then as the latest, a drainage. So every time they built something for the sponge city, they had to fill out those standards. And when a city reached those 20%, then they called that city sponge city. It's also important to have that they have to focus on the current state of the ecosystem and so on. It's not just constructing a building to reach that goal, but also to see what else is going around. They had also some principles. It was also important that they keep some kind of natural cycle and also to use the water some kind of in a cycle, that they consider the development of the current planning, and which is here in Switzerland less a thing, a governmental control if everything is working as it's supposed to, and also some kind of social participation when they implement this kind of measurements. So that idea in China was made mainly because of many flood happenings and so on. And in Europe, we are blessed with enough water. But what's even worse are the summer periods. Now, the example of Germany, because they collected this kind of data, we have really dry summer periods, which makes not just a problem on the surface, but also in the depth. So we have up to 2 meters into the ground, completely dryness. You see the maximum value would be 0.2. This pink color that you see is the absolutely maximum dryness that we have. And you see between April and October, we have up to 2 meters completely dryness, which is a huge problem in the nature generally. We in Germany or Switzerland, it's not that common that we have some forest fire and so on. But suddenly we have this kind of problems, and then you can imagine how it looks like later on in the city. 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago, we had a new study of the best scientists in Switzerland that collaborated together and tried to simulate the weather in 40 years. And yeah, it looks like that in 40 years, in worst case scenario, we will have rainwater events or rain events that we had all 100 years, suddenly all 30 years. And that heat periods of 4 days, that was so far like a normal standard, over 30 degrees as an average, is like a heat day, was so far 4 times happening per year in Switzerland. Now in the future, we will have 25 to 35 days. So really scary data that was published, and it shows how urgent it is to do something about it. Because if we don't, yeah, we will have a problem here in Switzerland. For that reason, we are trying to implement our sponge city as well in the city, or we kind of stole that idea from China and tried to implement it in Switzerland. The problem here is China is a big country, as the US as well. There's a lot of space for green infrastructure, for parks, for wetlands even, as in China they mainly build wetlands through the city. But Switzerland is really small, really, really small. Our biggest city has 1 million people, or the population is of 1 million in Zurich. So that's our biggest city, kind of. But because of that, the only parks and gardens that we have are in the streets. And we are trying to change the streets into a multifunctional street where we can use the space for all different activities as a parking lot and so on. But also the rainwater should be used for the trees so they can grow during those dry periods that I already mentioned. But that's not the only problem, kind of. We have enough water, but we have also a high groundwater level, up to half a meter underneath the surface, which means they have enough water, but yeah, during the heavy rain events, we still have to deal somehow with it. And also the groundwater drops during those dry periods to a really low, up to 2 meters down. So it changes pretty strongly during those events. And the only way to have this good or nice weather into the city, or not having urban heat islands, is by trees. We measured all kind of measurements by changing the concrete and so on to a lighter color and so on. There's no other way than with trees to cool down a city for a longer period, and nothing works as efficient as a tree. But in the cities, the trees are not looking like this. Usually in the nature, they would look like that. But usually we have, for example, parks. This is a park in Switzerland. And as you can see, as soon as we have a little bit of nice weather, I mean, it's I'm telling that wearing a jacket, so you can imagine how important it is to have sometimes the nice weather. So as soon in the springtime the sun comes out, everyone runs into the park, and for those reasons the trees don't look like the slide before. And if we even look on squares, you see already implemented trees from that are 80 years old or 100 years old. They are look totally fine, but the new trees have difficulties to get implemented under these heavy circumstances. And then even worse, we have the Bahnhofstraße, the main train station road where we have all the shoppings and so on, all the rich people buying watches and chocolate and cheese. And in those areas, yeah, the trees have even more challenges and difficulties. For that reason, we have to do something for them to make them grow. And when we build in a sponge city, or if we want to use some kind of rainwater, we are looking at trees that are already knowing how it is if we have a high groundwater, if we have a lot of strong rain events, but also sometimes dry periods. So this is uh, kind of the area where we are looking which type of trees we have. Unfortunately, everything is in German, but maybe you can translate it later on when I send you guys the slides. We have Kiermaier from 1995. He selected different tree species by the regions where they live. And you see, for example, Salix alba or Salix fragilis or Rubens, who are living close to the water that don't have such an issue under these high groundwater circumstances. And if we compare that to the urban area, or for example in China, they kind of implemented this similar environment as well in the gardens and in the park. In my opinion, a little bit too technical with these concretes around it, but you see as the picture the similarity between nature and parks. And the same thing we can also do in Switzerland. We have these glacier holes, or made by ice and snow and coldness, as it is right now, where we have also some kind of cascade and water management that flows from one hole to the other, that we try to implement into the cities. This is a project in Bern, but also this kind of environment is also a natural sponge. Maybe you don't see it in the first place, but when the snow melts, we have floodings, and the water can flow pretty easily from the left to the right and getting soaked up in this kind of soil environment with a lot of gravel stones that create a lot of volume under the ground retention area. And we have this well in the city. If you imagine a little bit, or if your imagination is a little bit wider, you see the mountains in the background, you see the green area and the freshly implemented trees and vegetation under these rural circumstances, and you have a big, long river that is now the train going through, but where the water can be soaked up and builds or has some kind of drainage function in the city. So if I skip one more time back, you see the mountains, the trees, and then yeah, as well here our little river. I'm going pretty quickly through it because we have limited time. You can ask later on more questions, but I want to share as much knowledge as possible. So the trees are usually growing outside the crown of the tree crown. That's the area where the fine roots are built up, and the fine roots are responsible for soaking up the water and soaking up the nutrition and so on. So outside the crown, the canopy, the tree canopy, that's actually the most important root parts of the tree. And if we place concrete around it, it gets really difficult for the tree to absorb any water. And this is also a standard from Germany. I'm sorry for this low quality of the picture, but there was not a better one. You see, back in the days, there was 12 cubic meter as a standard for the root space for a tree. That was the standard and norm where they every time build a tree, they said, okay, it has at least 12 cubic meters of space under the ground. And then, of course, the tree will get up to 15 years and maybe 5 meters high, which is not enough to create enough canopy volume over the whole city. And if we want to have 100-year-old trees, we need 300 cubic meter of root space. And if you don't have enough root space, then this kind of events happening. They have really small roots build up compared to the crown volume, and then you have 1 or 2 times a storm, and that's enough to break the trees. In Zurich, we have also a reduction of the tree canopy over the last years, and they said it was not the governmental fault, it was the wind's fault or the storm faults. So yeah, political strategies how to get votes, I would say. But actually, it's because they didn't have enough root space. So we came up with a solution that was invented kind of in Stockholm, but also you have Cornell University who implemented as well. Big crushed rocks who can hold on a lot of weight over the street that is built over, and the pores between it won't be compacted because all the weight will be shared over the other rocks. And these pores, the big pores, will be filled up. In Stockholm now, they filled it up with biochar that can absorb more water and nutrition. In those pores, then later on, the trees can grow through it because those are the areas who are not that compacted. And Stockholm used also some kind of inlets for air and water supply and so on. Vienna in Austria did a similar thing, but they used pipes to share the water around it. You see also a nice picture how the weight from above gets like shared over each gravel stone. And then, of course, we had to implement it as well in Switzerland. The first time we implemented in Bern. It's a small Sponge City pilot project, really small. It's a small parking lot. Bern is our capital city. You see it fits in a small picture of a presentation, not that big, but it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. That was a little bit difficult to build it in. And for that reason, you see also surrounded by a river. For those reasons, we were allowed to implement our project a little bit outside on a cemetery. This cemetery is a little bit outside because if something doesn't work as it's supposed to, no one would see it. And even in this small cemetery, we got a little pilot project area, a parking lot where we were allowed to implement those trees. We planted the trees in this kind of substrate. You see in the basic layer that we placed it in. It's also important that on the ground of this area, we have some kind of, how do you say, like a fall where the water flows away or to the tree. Because the worst thing that can happen is standing water underneath the ground. Standing water anywhere in the nature is always bad. That's the area where we have the bacteria. That's the area that we have some fungus and so on, illness. If it's on the ground or above the ground, then we have mosquitoes and so on. I'm checking the time to hurry. And that's absolutely that should not happen or never happen. So we have this substrate in the lower area, and then we have a little bit of finer substrate that is above. And the goal is that the trees can use left and right underneath this pavement, the area, and get those ideally 300 cubic meter of root space. This is how the substrate looks like. You see, Basuk is a US researcher. I don't know if you know her from the Cornell University that also tested it that way. You say each gravel stone can take up this force. This is the parking lot from above. You see in the middle this green area that was not implemented before. That's where we planted 5 trees. You have the orange area that is like a permeable pavement where the water can flow through it. We have sensors. This is the red X on the picture where we measure the moisture and compare how the development is underneath the ground. We have also biochar implemented in like dots. This is the white dots or beige dots, where we can trying to force the trees to grow their roots in a certain area and direction, and measuring with transparent pipes into the ground. That's the black dots, where we put a special root camera and take a picture and see if the trees reached that point or not. So that's our project, kind of, that we implemented it and following it up. This is a picture of another project of the root camera. I like this picture because it looks cool and you see the little hairs on each root, which makes it really interesting. So far, we couldn't measure yet any roots activity in this project, but it's just 1.5 years old. So we implemented recently. You see the substrate can hold on even heavy trucks that can drive over it. That's not a problem at all. You can easily compact it, but it still stays some kind of fluffy underneath. We have, or this is when we implemented this biochar that we mixed it in these little dots around it, where we didn't want to implement it all over the place because the trees should still search kind of for nutrition and not use everything on site. Because the trees, when they come from the nursery places, tree nurseries, you can compare it, they were in an all-inclusive holidays, enough of water and nutrition, and suddenly we cut off the roots and placed it somewhere into the cities where they're under stress conditions. You see, it was wet and loamy and horrible for the roots. The roots can fit in one hand, kind of, but in the same time, you have in the back like a huge crown, how they kind of supposed to, give them enough water and nutrition to get this big canopy cover that every city and every landscape architect wants to have. That's not possible. So for that reason, we had to prune the roots back that are completely broken. We had to prune above the trees. You see, in the end, it looks like a little stick out looking out from the ground. And that was horrible for the city. All kind of politician came out and said, "Oh, how could you do that for our trees and so on? You ruined everything." Luckily, we had support of our tree competence leader of the city, and he said it's totally fine. Now the tree has actually a chance to grow because the roots are equal to the crown volume. Actually, in nature, the root volume supposed to be 1.5 times bigger as the crown volume. And if we plant those ones later on in the trees directly from the nursery home, usually it's the opposite the case. So for that reason, it looks really brutal, but just a few months later, they grew completely back, and now each year they have over 1 meters of growth in that site, and we could prove that this concept kind of work. We also implemented it in Zurich and also on our campus that we are following up, because of lack of time, I shortened those slides on it. If you're interested more in the Sponge City projects, we have an International Sponge City Days in March. It's happening in 3 countries: China, Australia, China, Australia, and Switzerland. Unfortunately, not in the US because it's a little bit difficult with the time zone. But all of those are recorded, and if you are open to see it later on, you can register as an online participant and then see it after in a recorded way, or wake up at 1 in the morning or between 1 and 4 in the morning and join the live session. But I understand it's a little bit difficult, but who knows, maybe you're at that time in Europe, or if you're anytime in Europe or in Switzerland, please let me know. You're more than welcome to visit our wonderful campus. It's small and tiny, but it's still wonderful, especially during the springtime. And I hope I didn't overload with information. I try to keep it simple and quick, but I still try to share as many information as possible. So I hope it was not too much. Thank you for listening. And yeah, I'm excited to answer some questions. As I noticed, I think we had a few later on.
Thank you so much, Stefan. I think that was fantastic. Great technical information, good comparisons between the cities, great visuals. I love the root camera. And it's really a commercial for Switzerland as well. So thank you so much for sharing all that and squeezing in such a tight time frame. There's so much more we could learn from you. So I'm sorry for the short time frame, but really exciting work that you're doing, and we appreciate you sharing it. And yes, hopefully we'll have some time for questions, so put them in the Q&A section. And we'll turn it to Billy, and then we'll go back to kind of a panel for that Q&A.
Yes,
Billy?
thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Stefan. Billy, thank you so much for being here. Many of you in the Hampton Roads community may know Billy. Billy is a licensed landscape architect with 43 years of experience in a wide range of residential, commercial, municipal, military, and institutional projects. Prior to establishing the landscape architecture division at WPL, Billy was a senior associate at the Norfolk-based architectural firm of Schreiber and Holland for over 21 years. This, combined with WPL's extensive practice of landscape architecture, has afforded Billy a broad range of knowledge in all aspects of landscape architecture, including site analysis, master planning, site design, and construction detailing, plant design, as well as bid and award construction and bid and award and construction administration. Billy has served on federal, state, and local municipal governments, inclusive of all Tidewater, Virginia cities. Also has ties to his local community, serving on city council appointed boards and commission, as well as local neighborhood civic leagues. And an added note, I've worked with Billy for maybe about 12, 15 years and enjoyed every minute of it. So you're in for a treat, a lot of local expertise. And so look forward to kind of hearing your perspective on some of these items and how it blends to worldwide sponge cities and applies to our community. So thank you so much for being here.
All right, can everyone hear me? Can you hear me?
I can hear yes.
Okay, good. Let me start this. Okay, so thank you so much for the opportunity to share, Stefan. That was awesome, and it's really cool to follow a cool dude from Switzerland that's got pictures of the Alps. But I wanted to run through quickly. We are local landscape architects. I've grown up here. I grew up within a half a block of the ocean. I've been in the ocean all my life. I'm a surfer. So water quality and everything about the water has always been important in my life. So this is a real story about rain in Virginia Beach and where it goes and what we do. We basically have three watersheds, if you will, four watersheds. We drain to the north to the Chesapeake Bay. We drain to the south to the Albemarle Sound into North Carolina, to the east to the Atlantic Ocean, and to the west into the Elizabeth River. All these northern areas are governed by the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Act, and the Southern Rivers Watershed is an enormous watershed that we deal with in terms of design. So as a designer, what I'm trying to talk to you all about today is we are fortunate enough to have a really strong residential practice. And so we have the opportunity to get to multiple sites along watersheds. And our goal has been to improve water quality one site at a time. And so each neighborhood has private parcels, public right-of-ways to get there. Lots drain into the right-of-ways, drainage swales or the shorelines. Most of the right-of-ways drain right into the watersheds. So in a typical neighborhood, again, lots normally drain by sheet flow. They have ditches or swales or catch basins that convey rainwater to the outfall into a watershed. A typical residential parcel in Virginia Beach has drainage that's either A drainage, where it drains from the back to the front, or B drainage from the front to the back, or AB drainage with a high point in the middle. And the water drains in either direction, but it all ends up in the street. And conventional stormwater engineering, we've all grown up with this. Basins, inlets capture the rain, put it in a pipe. We get it away as fast as possible. That's just the way it's been for decades and decades. And so where is away? Well, we all know where away is. It ends up in a watershed, in a lot of cases not treated, rarely addresses water qualities. Pollutants flow directly in the watershed. A lot of our conventional stormwater management are end of pipe treatments. So what I'm going to talk about today is from a landscape architect's perspective on different ways that we deal and address with stormwater management. Regulations have been overhauled over the last few years. In 2014, which was a major overhaul of the stormwater regulation, was actually written by a landscape architect, Scott Crafton, who was my classmate at Virginia Tech, wrote those ordinances. Many, many options for rainwater management now. Honestly, the first big rainwater management project in the country was Central Park. It actually was a sanitary sewer project where Manhattan was just down at the tip and they were pumping sewage and everything else up north into this big, gigantic area, and the city engulfed it. Now it's one of the most sought after public spaces in the country, if not the world. It has the highest lease values of any property in Manhattan is around Central Park. So rainwater management starts at your roof. Roofs are a large percentage of site impervious cover, in addition to decks and swimming pools. It all adds up. So now it's raining on your property. How do we address that? Well, clearly one of the simple things is green roof technology, and you all know about that. Everywhere we have the opportunity, we try to do green roofs. It absorbs and filters rainwater. We do get credits from stormwater reviewers. It additionally helps with heat island. It comes very simply in palleted forms. There are systems now, you can buy them on Amazon. They show up as flats. If you have a flat roof or a gently sloping roof, it's easy to install. It's really a systematic approach to dealing with rainwater. Most of them are low maintenance sedums with very little maintenance at all. However, if you have a sloped roof and you have a traditional roof, if you will, standard roof system with gutters, the gutters intercept the rainfall flows down downspout flows down. You now have concentrated outfall. Where does that water go? There are lots of options out there. You've seen everything, especially up in the upper left-hand corner, riding by a neighborhood and somebody's got these plastic things going out into the lawn. But there are always different ways to do that. And lots of closed pipe systems that are out there in the market. We try to prefer to run rainwater above ground. Basins clogged, they get covered with leaves. You're not going to be out there at 2 o'clock in the morning during a hurricane trying to keep your drain open. We think it's really important to see water moving. Capturing water, rainwater harvesting, we've been doing this for years. Rain barrels, cisterns. Brock has got a really cool couple of cisterns. We did this at Kellam High School. The big question, are you really going to use the water? And we found that most people just think it's nice, but they never ever actually use the water. There is a lot of residential grade rainwater systems. NDS is a company that manufactures something we use all the time, which is a rainfall emitter. You can see this in the top where the head pressure coming down from the downspout will actually push this up and water will gurgle out curbside. Or most of the times what we do is we take it directly into a rain garden. That way we can get water directly off the roof, directly into a rain garden and do some level of retention and water quality improvements. Suppose your roof does not have gutters, and a lot of folks do not like to have gutters, and you have the water just coming directly off the eave. So we create drip interceptors around the base. They could have drainage socks below or gravel with perforated pipe. Lots of different ways to address this. Or you can do what they did in Williamsburg in the 1600s, is build a beautiful brick swale. But that water is, again, got to go to a drain and got to go to an outfall. So we're always cognizant of just where that water goes. NDS makes a flow well system. Each one of these containers capture 50 gallons of rainwater and slowly leach it into the soils. These can be connected up to 50, 100, 150, 200 gallons, and that becomes your reservoir of rainwater that slowly leaches into the ground. There's infiltration trenches, and you can see down below where we stack these flow wells together. It's important that the downspout doesn't connect directly to the pipe. We always want to disconnect so that they can be kept clean. Rain gardens, which I'm sure you all are very familiar with, these are little small ideas we have on residential sites to create beauty at the same time to capture some rainwater and to be able to capture some possibly some pollutants that would be coming off managed turf. A little bit more sophisticated with a residential rain garden, actually has an under perforated pipe and gravel below, so there's a better opportunity for storage. This does satisfy most Chesapeake Bay preservation area requirements, and then you can get really sophisticated with bioretention. It's more complex. It deals with storage, retention, slow release, and has water quality improvements. This is Kellam High School that we did for the city of Virginia Beach. We actually created a replica biomimicry of a marsh in Back Bay within the courtyard of the school. And all the rainwater from the roof comes down into this space. So during a rainfall event, it floods just like a marsh would. And it's been a huge successful educational tool for the science community at Kellam High School. We'll talk about pavements. The upper right-hand corner picture is the first permeable pavement project I ever did in 1988. It was with Bowmanite, which was a product from California that's poured in place that looks like that center photograph. And that is the parking for the chapel at Virginia Wesleyan University. It's been there for almost 40 some years there and still's work. Most of you all know about these products. You've seen them. But from an architectural standpoint, our clients are more inclined to use permeable paver systems like you see here. SF Rima, Belgard, Interlock, Hanover. They're very, very attractive, but they also allow for about 40% of permeability through that pavement section. Porous asphalt is done periodically. The jury's still out on maintenance on that, but that is a product that's available. It's becoming less and less expensive. Porous concrete has been out for a while. It's a little bit rougher surface. Again, the jury's still out on the maintenance. It's less expensive and seems to be used more on projects here. Simple gravels. One would think this is completely 100% pervious, and it's not. DEQ counts gravel as 100% impervious. So we have applied this product called Gravel Pave 2, which is down at the bottom, which allows you to use gravels, keeps them in place, and allows water to go through that. We've actually gotten credit from Chesapeake Bay Preservation Area work to be able to use that system. One of the projects we worked on here in Virginia Beach was we're constantly dealing with the push between development and trying to do the right thing for the bay. And so we came up with this idea on how to get tree canopy in parking lots and how not to lose a parking space, because the more parking spaces you have, the more pavement there is. So we actually come up with basically what you can see in the upper left is a triangular parking area with permeable pavers in the parking bays. Underneath the parking bays, similar to what Stefan was talking about, we have structural soils. And so what it does, it allows the root systems of these trees to grow out into those areas. There we get tree canopy, and we don't lose any parking spaces. So this is the BBT Bank, now Truist Bank in Virginia Beach. This parking lot is 100% pervious. It's pervious asphalt, permeable pavers, and tree canopy. The engineer didn't believe me, so he put his own conventional system in there, which the water's never gotten to it. Another product we've been using, and the city of Virginia Beach has been using, is FlexiPave. And so where we have to do sidewalk replacement, where there are existing trees, we're actually using this product, which is a recycled rubber product. It's poured like cement, but water goes right through it and allows you to walk across it safely. We're using this product on many, many sites. Recently, the UK has come up with the green-blue system. This is, again, out of the United Kingdom. It's a streetscape soil system where it's cells that actually are below grade. It's able to support pavers and concrete. You're able to put soil in there to grow trees. You're able to run your irrigation lines, sanitary sewer lines, and water lines through it. And it also acts as a sump for stormwater for streets. And this is something that we've been using. This is an earlier shot under construction at the Norfolk Botanical Garden, where we're creating a parking garden using this system to get more tree canopy without losing any spaces. Probably in the last 10 years, our whole concept of planting design has changed. It used to be that we planted tens of thousands of shrubs around waterways to meet the requirements of the Chesapeake Bay Act. Now simply, we don't plant anything. What we'll do is go out there and paint an orange line and tell people to stop mowing. And what they're now doing is doing successional managed meadows. It's a huge maintenance reduction. It takes mowing out of the cycle. We create these no-mow zones. They're either mowed annually, like in February, to keep them down, but allows natural succession, or they can be seeded, sprigged, or planted with native wildflowers. We have found that in areas where we have flooding, multiple nor'easters in a row, this is the only thing we can do, because every plant material that says that it grows and it's salt tolerant will not grow in inundation. And so this is what we've been doing along shoreline. Now it's available in sod. And so Meadowlab is in New Jersey. They actually grow sod, wildflower sod on concrete in a medium that can be rolled up and shipped in a pallet. And you can actually roll this out, and it looks just like that picture in the center on the left when it's rolled out. I saw it at a conference in New Orleans a few weeks ago. So you can actually sod these areas just like you would with turf. A lot of discussion earlier with Stefan about tree preservation. It's a huge part of our practice is to preserve trees in perpetuity, not just for the few years they're under construction. A lot of work has been done in this. So Dr. Daniel McLaughlin at Virginia Tech conducted some research in the last 10 years. He put soil probes in forested areas, calculated soil moisture and at X, and then there was a rainfall event of Y, and then he calculated how long it took for that soil to dry out, and it became abundantly clear that large shade trees can process up to 40,000 gallons of rain annually. And so forests are rainwater pumps, and that's what helps us with recurrent flooding and sea level rise and everything else that we're dealing with. And that is why it's so important to preserve forests. An enormous amount of research has been done in the city of Virginia Beach by the Nature Conservancy as well as Virginia Tech on this very topic. And so what we have tried to do is to carry that forth, not only with our clients, but there was a big push in the General Assembly in the last few years for tree preservation bills. We finally got DEQ to add a minor level of water quality treatment to regulations in 2024 for trees. And so that was just a big step in the right direction. This is a project we worked on 71st Street that was vacant land, but had some rather large trees on it. It was a duplex project. Northern Virginia Beach is pretty well developed. This just happened to be a site right in the middle of it that was not developed. So we were able to actually do some monitoring and testing on that due to the development. The vegetation was cleared, but we were able to preserve a huge basswood in this location. And you can see here how critical it is on surveys that we work with, that the actual drip lines of these trees are portrayed so we know how to design around them, because as Stefan said earlier, 65% of the critical root zone is under the drip line. The other 35% is out of the drip line. So it's really important in terms of tree preservation. We also had to do an enormous amount of stormwater modeling. I mean, our site is located in the middle of this drainage area, but we had to model about 7 or 8 blocks in both directions, and finally came up with a use of porous concrete with a storm tech system underneath that has gravel, and that is how we met our stormwater management requirements for that site. You can see here a model of construction and the actual construction here. This is all permeable concrete. It looks rough when it's first poured, but this entire driveway, except for these paver bands, is porous. And so that's just how we're doing this on a residential scale. This basswood was processing tremendous amount of gallons of water. I mean, Dr. McLaughlin said it was over 65,000 gallons of rain annually, just one tree. And one of the things that he brought up to us, with an 8-inch leaf surface, there's a certain amount of intercept, rainfall that never hits the ground. When it starts raining, what is the first thing we do? We run underneath a tree. And so there's a part of the rainfall event that never actually hits the ground if you have that kind of canopy. And so we've been able to save this tree in perpetuity. We look forward to increasing the DEQ regulations with regards to tree preservation and furthering bills in the General Assembly to support that. So with that, I thank you all very much, and I will stop sharing, and I guess we will turn it back over to questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Billy. Really great presentation, and I love the low examples and kind of talking about their performance history, as well as some of the upcoming projects as well in our community. That's really exciting. We can learn from those owners. So both really great presentations. I have a few questions personally. We have one in the chat, and I know we're going to try to wrap up around 1, but if others want to ask questions, and Stefan, you're welcome to come back on video. Some of these may be ones that you want to answer as well. Please put them in that Q&A section. And just an added note, I put in the chat too that Billy, as you mentioned, the Virginia General Assembly will have a role with tree canopy, I believe, this session as well. So if people want to know more about how that legislation could impact these policies, please let me know, and others, we can get you more information on that. That's a very timely issue. Someone had asked this one for Billy, but Stefan, if you have any thoughts on what happens in Europe, please share. Mr. Almond, is it required that a certain percentage of residential commercial lot have to be permeable? So you can't pour concrete over your entire front or backyard, for example. And I know that varies also by locality, regs do, but.
It does. There's a couple zoning districts in Virginia Beach that you cannot exceed 60% impervious cover with your home, decking, swimming pool, driveway. That's written in the zoning ordinance. I know that the Chesapeake Bay staff at the City of Virginia Beach and the Bay Board begin to get nervous on larger sites when there's 30 to 32% impervious cover. And it is beneficial for the homeowner to understand just what they're doing, because they will be required by ordinance to mitigate for impervious cover. And so a lot of times for every square foot of impervious cover, you have to do 2 square foot of a planting bed. And so it's really set up in units. And so one unit, planting unit could be a large shade tree, a medium flowering tree, and 5 shrubs. And so for every so many square feet of impervious cover, you have to mitigate with that on your site. So the more impervious you put down, the more mitigation you're going to have to do. Now, most people want beautifully landscaped yards. What we try to do is blend that mitigation in so that it looks like a landscape and not make it clear that it's a BMP. But yes, there are, whether it's the Chesapeake Bay ordinance and certain zoning ordinances in Virginia Beach and our locality do have maximum impervious cover. And that is the R5R zoning district, which is pretty much the ocean front north of 42nd Street on around the Bayside, all the way to Norfolk.
Stefan, anything from the European regulatory point of view that may be applicable? I know different political situation, different regulations.
Well, it's similar as well in Switzerland. 40% is allowed to be like sealed in Switzerland. 60% have to be permeable, even though you can use some kind of material that is half permeable. So often, yeah, it's getting locked, and then it doesn't have any more this rainwater function as it's supposed to. But we have also additionally a rule for the private properties that only 20% of the surface or of the rain fall or rainwater is allowed to leave the private property. So every owner has to deal kind of by himself with the rainwater, and for those reasons, they are kind of forced to do some kind of green areas that are absorbing this kind of water.
Thank you. That's very helpful. Another question, any suggestions or ideas for kindergarten through 12th grade teachers who are working to educate their students about blue-green career pathways so they can understand what to do to encourage coastal resilience?
I can share first. We are very aggressive about meeting with high school students and middle school students and even elementary school students. Probably one of my favorite stories was we had worked with a local elementary school here in SeaTac, and we had designed a community garden for them. And Pharrell Williams, who's our hometown hero, had come in and supported that, and we were able to take about 25 or 30 students through an actual design project from beginning to end, and they saw it come into fruition. So we are all the time out there trying to promote and talk about environmental stewardship, obviously recruiting for landscape architects in the future. But it's amazing how many students right now are geared up for this. We are fortunate to have a really strong internship program with the Environmental Science Academy at the Brock Environmental Center, where we have students that come here at least two a session, and sit in our office and actually work on a project with us. And we try to do what we can to educate them on environmental stewardship, environmental design, landscape architecture. So we just take a really active role with that. It's just something that we're really proud to do.
Stefan, have you seen anything in your communities that's worked well?
Well, it's hard in Switzerland. They don't do that much, unfortunately. Swiss people are scared of everything that is new. They want to stick to the old system. For those reasons, we have only pilot projects in this kind of fields. We don't have really on a larger scale something. We have many school visits on our university campus that we can use and share somehow. But unfortunately, here is everything slow going. And yeah, our students are now the first ones who just have actually some kind of lectures about blue-green streets or blue-green infrastructure. So when they finish their studies in like 3 to 4 or 5 years and get into the practice, it's already 2030. And then they need to be in some kind of position that they can decide something. So it's already 2035 or 2040. And that's a little bit the hard work that we are trying to do to educate not just the students and young ones, because they are often already aware what is coming for them into the future, but also trying to educate the politicians, the engineers, the architects. Unfortunately, here the architects don't have anything sort of functional education. Most of it is aesthetical, but not really functional things. And for me, as a young researcher, it's always to deal with, oh, I'm working 30 years in this practice, and now you're coming and scientists from a university telling me how to build and do things. So it's a lot of resistance. So just if you're teacher and motivated to do this kind of projects, yeah, with just only with your motivation, you will, I think, be capable to motivate your students. That's my best advice that I can give.
No, I think that's true. And I think we all know lots of sectors to educate. Yes, including K through 12, but lots decision makers, like you said, other professionals. So thank you. There's somebody from Hampton Roads Sanitation District who mentioned something in the Q&A chat about appreciate the presentation and just kind of talking about furthering conversation with soil saturation being so high, particularly in our area. We gave Stefan a little bit of background in the Hampton Roads area, and there's already some challenges with keeping rain and stormwater out of our sanitary sewer with that infiltration issue that we deal with, particularly with aging infrastructure, but also tree roots as well. So having to make sure we navigate that issue to avoid future problems and conflicts to not worsen that sanitary sewer is a really important issue. And I think John Dano in the chat had said, maybe that's a kind of community conversation that we should be increasing, because we all want more trees, but we don't want more I&I, so to speak, which is that infiltration of the sewer system. So I don't know if we need to respond, but that's just a flag of something to think through, and another factor to layer in.
No, it's really important. I've learned a lot from working with arborists on why trees seek out going underneath sidewalks and why they seek out pipes and all of that. And so it has a lot to do with soil moisture. It also has a lot to do with oxygen. And so it's just, we use, when we have tight spaces, we use a lot of deep root barriers to be able to directionally send roots away from specific utilities or things of that sort. And we're also mindful of easements and not planting over top of, especially public infrastructure where we know it has the opportunity to be torn out of the ground. So it's definitely on our mind. And a good survey, a good land survey that shows all the easements and all the utilities is a critical starting point for any landscape design.
Yeah, the only thing that I can add from the Euro perspective, our root barriers never worked here, at least. Because the roots always finds the weak point, and even if you build it in, it will grow underneath and go against on the opposite side. So far, our best way to deal with it is, as Billy mentioned already, is the lack of oxygen with fine sand. That is, we use that sand usually just for bees that can build their own environment. It's like a really fine material, almost like a loam. That helps out to keep the oxygen away or not make it interesting for the trees. And that's how we deal when we have somewhere closer a root system. But Switzerland is rich, so most of our pipes are new. So we don't have this kind of problems that often. And often it's not the tree's fault, it's the construction's fault why it happens.
Never the tree's fault, right? Yeah. We're about at time. I could continue this conversation, and I think many others could. And we've got such a great diversity online here. So just really appreciate, I think to me, there's a lot of more information that we can explore further as a community. I think this leads to, future discussions and future programs, hopefully for others as well. I put in the chat an evaluation link, but hopefully that can be a opportunity for folks to share what else they'd like to hear about, what other conversations, more in-depth trainings along these lines or with others. I think there's a lot along these lines that we would love to explore with more time. Carol, any last thoughts from your perspective?
I just want to wish everyone a very happy Thanksgiving. Billy and Stefan, thank you so much. Great to have you here today. And there is a lot of interest in this and how we move it forward. And I'm so happy to see Jay Dano from HRSD say we need to have more conversations about that. So definitely want to keep these conversations going. And I really know it's nice to know that even in Europe, the engineers are a little reluctant to grab onto these philosophies. So we share that pain with you, Stefan. So happy Thanksgiving, everyone, and thank you all so much.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.